All right, hello everyone. My name is Aleksander Marttla, and this is my honors thesis on tracking AI legislation in America. So let's just get right into it. So starting off, I want to talk a little bit about why I decided to do this as my thesis. Why spend the last few months looking at AI legislation of all things? The first main reason is because this is becoming an ever-present part of our day-to-day lives, whether we like it or not. As of January of this year, experts estimate that around 15 to 20% of all content online is AI generated, and that number jumps up to 30% on social media. So next time you're on Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media of your choice, just think that around a third of everything that you're seeing has at least some level of generative AI behind it. And keep in mind, this has only been around in the public sphere for a few years, and it's continuing to grow faster and faster, which makes it harder for people to keep up with it, specifically lawmakers and the average person in general. It's important for people to know not just what these tools are capable of, but also what laws there are around it. What are the rules at play here? And so my project aims to help clear up a bit of that confusion. So with just a brief summary, my project is a website that has two main functionalities. The first one is a table where you can view a list of AI legislation on a state-by-state basis. So for example, if you're in Texas, you can view all the laws in Texas or broadly across the United States. Secondly is a map of the United States that highlights three policies that I felt were important to highlight that apply to different levels across different states. But I feel like that's enough talking about this project. Why don't I just go ahead and show you how it works. So as you can see, there's a front page, and it has two buttons for the different functionalities. And first we'll go to the View AI Legislation by State. So if we click on that, it takes us to the table view. And as you can see, there is a very, very lengthy table of a lot of laws pertaining to AI. But we're in Texas, we don't care about the other states. So if we click that drop-down menu right there, and you can scroll down to select Texas, or I don't know, Tennessee if you're interested in that. But as you can see, it filters out so that it only shows the policies that affect Texas. And you can see the title of the bill number, as well as a description, if it's been passed, if it's been failed to pass, or if it's currently trying to be passed. And then if you click on the link right there for a bill you're interested in, saying, all right, that's interesting, I want to learn more about it, it takes you to a link with more information on that bill. If you click either of those, it'll take you to some very riveting legal documentation that unfortunately we don't have the time for. So if we go back to the main website, to the right, and then scroll up, or just go back a page. Just go back a page, and then we can go on to the map view of AI legislation. So as you can see, there's three main policies I wanted to highlight here. The first is the right of publicity. This governs someone's control over how their likeness is used in a commercial setting. So for example, if your image is used in an advertisement, it governs all of the regulations regarding any financial damages from that. For right of privacy, it again governs your control over how your likeness is used without your consent, more so pertaining to any emotional damages that may be caused from that. And lastly is post-mortem right of publicity, which as the name implies, is right of publicity for dead people. But the reason I decided to separate these out into post-mortem and not post-mortem is because of the variety of differences in the cases. For example, having a living actor have their likeness replicated versus the various cases of actors who have been deceased having their likeness replicated with or without the consent of their estate. But as you can see, on the map right there, it highlights based on the level of coverage. So yellow represents full coverage, but without mention to AI. Orange is only partial coverage, and if you highlight over a state that only has partial coverage, say South Carolina or Florida, for example, it says it only has partial coverage, and it has statutory protection, but it only applies in cases that directly promote a product or service. A lot of states also have exceptions that this only applies for people in the military or for people of notable commercial value, which are celebrities essentially. But if we go over to Tennessee, which is the green one, you can see that it has full coverage, including explicit mentions to AI and other forms of digital replicas. And you're like, that's pretty interesting. I want to read more about that. If we click on the state right there, it'll take us to the source where that information is taken from. And if you want, you can scroll down, but again, we don't have the time for that to, again, read the very riveting legal documentation of this. But with that, that is the demonstration for this concluded. Thank you very much for bearing with me. And then now I'd like to talk a bit more about how I actually went about developing this and what that process was like. So up here I have a rough diagram of how this is actually structured. I'm gonna try to be as understandable as possible here. This is the most technical thing in the presentation. But as you can see, there is the user on the left, and they send requests through their browser to the website, which is hosted on a server, which is hosted by DigitalOcean. Then those requests are received by an Nginx server. This essentially acts as a gatekeeper that handles the different requests in and out of the server, as well as ensuring that if there's a large influx of requests, it doesn't just crumble immediately. Then it goes on to the React server, which handles the front end, which is all of the very, very pretty visuals you saw just now. And then also for the back end, which handles interaction with the database where the AI legislation is stored. And that's basically it. Of course, I could go into very excruciating detail, but that's not really the point of this presentation. But going on, I'd like to talk about some of the developmental challenges I faced while working on this project. The first main one is deciding how to present the data. This was mainly with reference to the map view. There's probably too much time spent on deciding a good color palette that represented the level of coverage, was visually distinct enough from each other for the purposes of visual clarity, as well as if someone was colorblind, it needed to be accessible to them. And also just not being visually grating, because if it's clear and it's visually distinct, but it burns your eyes, you're probably not gonna wanna look at that for too long. I like to think I achieved that goal. You can be the judge of that. And secondly is the issue of actually collecting the data in the first place. Now for the map view, I couldn't really automatically get this, or at least not efficiently, because sure, while I could have some way to automatically get the information and extract the relevant details and something really, really fancy and elegant like that, at the end of the day, the time that would be spent developing that would probably be longer than just getting the information and putting it in myself. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution in these cases, but for the table view, that has hundreds of entries. I cannot do that without keeping my sanity. So I use a process called web scraping, which is essentially going to the website, downloading the information from there, and putting it in a database. I first tested this locally just to make sure it worked before putting it on the website. And as you can see, it goes from my laptop to the website where I'm getting the information from, and then it's sending the information back. And this was a success on like either the first time or the second try. It worked. I was able to view the information. I was like, great, so this is gonna work when I put it on the website, right? Right? It's gonna work then. It always works. So again, once that program was on the server, sent the request over to the website where I was getting the information from, and I was getting something back, and it worked. No, it did not work. The main reason for this was likely due to the address being blocked by the website. Sometimes websites will just block a select set of addresses from certain providers, or otherwise addresses that just look suspicious, which probably good for security on their part, but very inconvenient for me personally. So rather than trying to circumvent on the server, well, I already had the data on my laptop locally, so I was able to just take all of the information in there and through a 1,000-line long insert statement, put it into the website. So again, not elegant, but did it work? Yes, it did. So moving on from that, I'd like to talk a bit about where this project could be taken in the future, either if I was to work on it for another semester or if someone else was to do work in this field. The first main area is just increased policy information. Right now, it only goes from 2015 back to 2019. Part of this is because this is when most of the developments were happening around generative AI, and so that's when policies were being enacted for those technologies. You can't really make a law on ChatGPT if ChatGPT does not exist, but even on that note, there can be certain policies from, say, the 70s or the 60s that could be potentially relevant that I wasn't able to locate based on my limited scope. So, of course, having more information is always useful. Additionally, having more information from different locations is always useful. Right now, it's limited to America because just one country's laws are complicated enough, but in the future, it could be expanded to Europe or Asia or other parts of the world. And lastly is a section for some kind of call to action. Right now, it is mostly just displaying the information, telling you, hey, this is really inconsistent across the country, and hey, maybe your state is deficient in this area, but doesn't really have a method for someone to look at that and be like, wow, that kind of sucks. What can I do about it? And so having some way to provide them with resources either on a national level or for their state could be really useful. Say, hey, there are groups that are working on this. I also thought about having some way to contact their local representatives, but putting in a way to contact local representatives on my website for my honors thesis feels a little pointed, at the very least for what I'm trying to get across, but at the very least some way to encourage people to, instead of just looking at this, give them some knowledge on, hey, there are things you can do to take action on this if you're concerned about it. And lastly, I'd like to wrap around to how I started this presentation on why am I working on this, right? AI content's becoming more prevalent on the internet, but why do I personally care about that? If you couldn't tell by this presentation, I am a computer science major, and I work, at the very least recently, I've done a lot of work with or relating to AI, and there is a lot of good that these technologies can do. There's a lot of benefit that they can bring. However, they have gotten a fairly bad reputation in the past several years, and understandably so, given how a lot of companies have used them. But by clearing up a lot of the confusion around this area, making it clear on, hey, this is what people are allowed to do, and this is what people are not allowed to do, hopefully that enables people, both as consumers and as developers of AI products, to have a more complete view and clear up some of the mystique of just viewing it as wholly good and a fun profit machine, or wholly bad and something that needs to be burned. I think we can coexist with AI. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we can learn to use it ethically and with the respect both it and we deserve. But with that, that's all I have for now. Thank you all so much for your time. If there are any questions, I'd be more than welcome to answer them.
5 minutes for questions for Alexander.
Yes, Dr. Carr.
How many websites are you scraping?
So for the website, there's different articles on this one main source that I found that has information on AI law for all 50 states, going back from 2025 all the way back to 2019. Of course, again, part of the expanded policy information could be finding even more sources on that. But from what I was seeing from that and comparing it to the actual data from the state websites, it was relatively robust enough. But again, there's always more that can be done to ensure that it is complete and accurate. Anyone else?
How did you pick that one?
Honestly, just looking around and seeing, hey, what sources are available. It wasn't a lot of, I guess for asking on how the process of choosing that one was, hey, this is a source that is contains a lot of information about what I am looking for and is authoritative. You can verify it has links to the actual laws that it is citing. And so that's the main reason I chose that. Yes.
How long did it take you to put in the information manually?
Probably around, per policy, around, I want to say, 50 minutes to an hour. On average, it probably took longer just because of trying to figure out exactly how to format everything, what was relevant, what wasn't relevant. But I think around that amount of time was a lot quicker than trying to develop a solution that would do it automatically and super elegantly. At the end of the day, you know, the simplest solution was the best. Yes.
It looks like from that, most AI policies regulated at the level of the state right now. Is there not much federal?
Yes, there are certain federal policies being passed, such as the No Fakes Act. Again, right now, you're right, a lot of this is limited to a per state basis. And so having some way to track more national policies could be really useful, but you're right about that. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
Is the website live now, and do you plan to keep up with it and have it updating it?
As of right now, it is live. It's currently running. The server that's being hosted on, which is generously provided by the university, will be going down at the end of the semester, but I will have documentation on it. So if I decide to work on it in the future, hopefully I can have it running on my own instead of on a university-provided server. But yes. Anyone else? Yes.
What was the most interesting thing you learned? Like, what's a policy that stands out to you?
I think a lot of it was related to Tennessee, which I was surprised that it was a state that had the most robust laws regarding digital replicas and other forms of, hey, people can use technology to fake people's identities. And I want to say the act that a lot of it goes from is the Elvis Act. So it was really surprising to see, again, that one state was the only one where right of publicity was explicitly covered with reference to AI and other digital replicas. But, I mean, it makes sense given the state's history. But anyone else?
I think, I would like to invite his mentor, Dr. Agarwal, up to provide him with his stole and cords that he will wear during graduation as an honor student, and to say a few words about it.
Sure. Congrats, Alec. Good job. Responsible innovation in AI. Rules and regulations are going to play a big part in it. There are not a lot at national level, like he found, but there are quite a few at the state level. And as you saw, Alec did a good job in tracking all the different AI-related laws and regulations that exist and present in a way where it's easy for us to understand and go through. So congratulations again, and let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Again, thank you all so much. And check out all the other presentations that are going on. They're all wonderful people.